Hi, everyone. This is Sam again. I've been fortunate to lead this work stream with Miguel DeBarros for the past few years. And yeah, very thankful. But before going too much into that, want to start off with a question. Intentionally a little bit vague. So I'll take 5 answers. So the question is, when did Mojaloop start? Intentionally vague. So there were a few people here in this room who were there in the first meeting in that room as well, excluding those people. When did Mojaloop start? Okay. So Kim, you were in the room, so you are excluded.
I think Mojaloop started in 2016.
That's close. Okay. 4 more answers, guesses. Yes, please. 2017?
2017.
15. Okay, we'll see. Not close. The earlier one was closer. 3 more. 2015. Going farther. 2 more. 2012. Maybe the idea came up in 2012. Okay, last one. Doreen.
November 2016.
Very specific. I like it. Close, but not. Okay, next slide, please. So we thought we'll just do a brief history walk as we look at the Mojaloop core and releases. So in June of 2016, there was a room full of people. I think Miller was the host. Kim was there. Matt was there. I wasn't sure if anyone else in this room was there, but to my knowledge, I think that's the extent of it. Yeah, it's good to look back and see where we came from. I hope that was clearer. But in 2016 June, so we had this meeting. Level 1 project development part of it was kicked off. I think Miller and Matt will be able to answer when the actual idea came about. James, to your guess. I think it was 2013, even that one. And then later in that year, 2016, we had the API specification project kicked off. It was called PDP at the time. And in fact, in 2016, it was called the Level 1 project development. So, and then in 2017, October, in Toronto, Canada, the Mojaloop branding was unveiled at the event. And Mojaloop was launched as open source, as a reference implementation of that vision. In 2018, the work to make that implementation of product quality was started. And also, the actual PDP project outcome of developing a standard API that defines how financial institutions should interact with each other was published. There were 4 software and MNO software provider companies that came together and established that interoperability is possible with that API, have proven that. They developed the code and tested it, and it was published. And then in 2018 April, we had a first Mojaloop community event in Johannesburg. In September later that year, we had a first official release of Mojaloop. It had pre-releases so far. Next slide, please. I don't want to go too much into this, but you can see several releases. And with Mojaloop 11.0.0, that's where we adopted semantic versioning. And prior to that, in 10.4.0, we had Mojaloop FSP interoperability API version 1.1, and the support for that was implemented. You can look at that after the next slide, please. This will be on GitHub. So this is where we are now. 15.1.0. I hope it was clearer, but 15.1.0 is the current as of yesterday. The latest stable release has some improvements, and 15.2.0, what we are calling Acacia, is what we are going to have from now onwards, from the beginning of PI 23. So this will include the node upgrades. Node upgrade is a constant maintenance activity that we do. We had the upgrade from 16 to 18. And then the updates from the performance workstream that we just looked at, some of those were already published with release quality. Those are included and rolled out with this release. So there is extensive bit of testing, regression testing, and support that was done on the core team side to enable this, and we'll look at it into a little bit more detail. There are a couple of releases in the pipeline on the horizon, 16 and 17. These are just candidate numbers. We use semantic versioning to guide our numbering system. Thank you. Next slide, please. So we looked at the timeline overview, and we look at the two important things there: node upgrades and inclusion of enhancements, and then towards the end roadmap. I'll pass this on to Paul Baker, who's leading this team to introduce our methodology, and then we'll hear from Miguel. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Sam. I'm not sure if I would have got that answer. Mojaloop certainly got a long history. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. I think this is your slide.
Yeah, these are the usual goals for the team to maintain the latest stable release and take care of the highest priority maintenance items. So this time it was node upgrade. And we also support other active work streams in the Mojaloop ecosystem and community who are delivering release quality code. So that's what we've done, and maintaining the QA dev environments and supporting community and other work streams. Those were the goals, and we'll see how we were able to perform against those in the coming slides.
Okay. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about the core team and how we work. So these are the members who have contributed to the last release. So we've got Aaron, Elijah, who's here with us, Kevin, myself, Miguel, Sam, Shri, Stephen, and Vijay, and all of us have made a contribution. I would like to highlight maybe Stephen's contribution. He's really been working towards finalizing that release, putting it together and doing the testing, which is a huge amount of effort. Maybe I can single out Miguel. He's been a massive architect in helping sort of build on the good engineering that's in place at the moment. And Vijay, who's also been seconding that as architects as well. And Shri's our QA. Together, we've got a very widely skilled, multifunctional team, really helping deliver some of this core effort. Can you go to the next slide? So how does the core team work? All the issues that we work on are on the GitHub projects. I think some of you are maybe new into the community and don't know that. It is a really good reference site, and there's a lot of information there, and you can really follow the progress. So it's more than just how we work, it's also how we communicate the work that we're doing in detail to the community. So please use those boards. It's a good reference site. So we agile, we work in a 2-week sprint cycle, and we write up our stories, and then we refine them and prioritize them. So in other words, decide which stories we want to do, and then we concentrate on the acceptance criteria for that story. Exactly what do we need to do to make that story complete and say that that story is done. So we put a lot of emphasis on those acceptance criteria. Oh, am I not speaking clearly? So we put a lot of emphasis on that acceptance criteria, and then we size those stories, and then we decide what goes into that sprint. Before a story is completed, we make sure that we code review it. We go through PRs, and then we also make sure that there's testing that goes alongside that, that covers the functionality that's been added, obviously. And then we have a whole lot of continuous integration testing, which includes test coverage, licensing, regression, just to name a few. We keep on adding into those CI testing, but that's sort of it's a high level overview of sort of the structure that we've got to ensure that we have we deliver on good engineering. So now I'm going to hand over to Miguel, who's online, and he's going to talk through the work that we actually did in that release. Miguel, are you here?
Hey, Paul, can you guys hear me? Testing. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Paul. Yeah. So just to continue from where you left off, right? So we've done all that work. We followed the process where we've worked on individual repositories, etc., and done QA and tested it, etc. And we've created releases through our automated CI. And then not necessarily always, but at the end of a PI, we have what we call a packaged release, right? Which is basically we take all these containers and assets that we built, and we basically package them into something that can be deployed on Kubernetes using Helm. And that's Acacia. That's 15.2.0. We currently have a release candidate. And in this release candidate, you've heard some of the things that we've already done from the performance stream, as well as mentioned as well. So we have the Node.js and dependency upgrades. So this is general maintenance that we've done. Node.js has a release cycle in their latest supported version, etc. LTS moves along, and we need to make sure that we are following it as well. And as well as our dependencies. So these are the libraries that we have dependencies on for our core services, etc. We need to make sure those are upgraded. So that's also now included in this release. And then on top of that, we have a lot of the performance related kind of work as well. So the account lookup service, for example, now has instrumentation, so we can monitor what is going on inside of it, which is supporting the performance stream. You've heard a little bit about how we done the performance characterization stuff. Well, we built a framework, and it's pretty much allows us to run our performance tests in a reproducible way. And in fact, we can even put it into a CI process, which I'm hoping to see in the near future time. And in the ML core test sonnets, we've broken it up into several capabilities. We have the ability to run the core stack itself, which includes the Mojaloop services, as well as the monitoring aspects, which is basically Prometheus and Grafana, as well as some additional services to capture the underlying metrics of what's going on within the system. And as you heard earlier, we also have an ability to run the K6 test runner to run the individual test cases. And then along with that, we have the performance stream enhancements, fixes, and contributions for account lookup service quoting, the ML API, and the central ledger. And of course, we do have some bug fixes that have come along the way. For example, the central ledger had a bug with its caching capability. If you try to configure the cache any other means than what was default, it wouldn't correctly take. So we have fixes for that kind of thing as well. And we've also done, as part of this, we've done maintenance to our QA dev environment from an OSS perspective, our open source perspective in the Mojaloop Foundation, which is running EKS. We've upgraded this environment to the latest version of Kubernetes, version 1.28. It previously was on 1.27. And of course, we're making sure that the Mojaloop release 15.2.0 release candidate is working on the latest version of Kubernetes itself. We've also made some CI improvements along the way. Previously, we need to make sure that we're also running the latest version of Node that matches the version that we have upgraded to. The pipelines are now doing that correctly, so they are in lockstep with the versions that get built. We've also updated the CI dependencies. So, for example, there are plugins or Circle CI orbs, which allow us, for example, to do the Slack notifications, as well as the machines that we use to build the Docker images, etc., like Ubuntu, etc. We've upgraded those. And we've also provided support to be able to release Helm snapshots. Previously, this was possible by merging into the master or main branch, but now we can actually do it from almost any location that we want, from any feature branch or anything like that. And then just following up on that, we do have some follow-up items. So potentially, we want to merge additional performance stream contributions, and that might be a patch release, etc., later on. So, for example, the batch processing that you heard about. And there's also some improvements and some additional things that we need to do with the TTK as well. As part of the performance stream, we found the TTK needed a bit of work. There were some memory issues with it. That's something that we would like to do as well. And of course, there's just the general maintenance that will go along with that. On the bottom right of the screen, you'll see that you can access the release candidate now. You can add the Mojaloop repo. You can make sure you've updated the repo. And you need to basically run all the commands that you would normally do with a special attribute called --devel. In other words, this is for developer releases. And you can see the version there as well that we currently have from a snapshot release or a dev release. And at the bottom of the screen, that's where the PR is. You can go to that link You can see what's happening there and what the conversations on how we're reviewing it, etc. And we also have a link to the release notes themselves, which are also pretty much in a final state. So I'm hoping that the release will be fairly imminent. Yeah. I think next slide. I think we're running out of time, so I'm probably going to rush a little bit through these ones. Okay, just to iterate, why is the Node.js and dependency upgrades very important, guys? So, well, if we don't upgrade the Node.js and we don't upgrade the dependencies, as the way that the life cycle of software goes, you'll often find that there are security issues and vulnerabilities that end up popping up from bad code or just maybe other dependencies within the systems themselves. So one of the reasons we are upgrading Node.js and the dependencies is to make sure that those security issues have been fixed, or actually even just bugs in general. And also one expects additional performance gains as a result of upgrading to the latest versions of Node, etc. Right? So it's really providing a way for us future-proofing, etc., new releases and changes, making sure that the complexity of our future updates and the maintainability, etc., are going along. And of course, one of the important things is having access to the latest tools or capabilities of the underlying dependencies and Node.js runtimes, etc., that provide us with further potential abilities to provide better features and even potentially faster working Mojaloop services in future. So this required us to upgrade 33 core repositories. And there's an epic, you can go to the link, you can see what's all there. And as we said, we update all dependencies, we fixed all the dependencies for upgrading and security audits. We obviously, if there were any issues with our QA, unit tests, integration, etc., those were fixed. And we also review, in general, there are sometimes some dependencies that are added to ignore lists, as well as some audit issues that potentially cannot be fixed immediately. We re-review all those things and make sure they're still applicable and update issues, etc., that are associated to them if they are still in place. And of course, we update everything to use the latest version of Node that's available at the time. We also refactored the main branch to now main. It previously was master, so we're aligning to now best practices from that. And we just further standardized how we do our CI as we're going through and updating all our CI pipelines, etc. Yeah, next slide, please. And this is just a list of some of the issues, features, and bug fixes that we have. I'm not going to go through these in detail. You've already heard a lot of what these are. You can go through to the release notes, and on the release notes for each of these issues, you'll see listed. There'll be a link to the particular issue so you can read more about it, etc., and understand what it is and how it impacts potentially you, etc. Next slide. I'm going to hand back over to Sam. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Miguel. So this is more of a detailed view of what we saw at the beginning. We have 15.10, which is the current stable release until we had this new release candidate for 15.20. And you can see the details of what is included. Can you go to the next slide, please? So with you can see that we are always tracking versions of Kubernetes, Ubuntu, Node, and those upgrades will always be periodic and will be included. And then there are some incremental enhancements and improvements as well. So in the last PI, we have primarily those two, the Node upgrades and performance stream improvements. We also had some improvements to the continuous integration and deployment pipelines as well, and some bug fixes, maintenance of dev QA environments, and usage of EKS as well. And in the future, there are some candidate items. The release names, I think Paul Makin has discussed that earlier, the names we have in the pipeline. Along with that, the features themselves will be determined by the active work streams and the deliverables made by them. Right now, we know that merchant workstream, on-prem, and FX are quite active. Workstreams such as on-prem will not affect this roadmap because they are downstream implementers who will adopt these. But the deliverables from workstreams such as merchant, FX, and maybe PISP, whoever is doing that, will be rolled out in our future releases. And whenever the code base changes, that will become part of the future roadmap as well. With that, thanks, Miguel, again. I appreciate your contribution, and thanking the whole team.